My manipulative wife crashed my daughter's sweet 16 and embarrassed her in front of her crush. So my daughter and I did the same thing when her birthday came around. My wife and I got married around 2 years ago, and there has been one thing and one thing only which I dislike about her, and that's how controlling she is towards my daughter. She is not her bio mother but likes to act like one, often asking my daughter to refer to her as her mother. In parent-teacher conferences she addresses herself as my daughter's mother too, and it's things like that which has made their relationship sour to say the least. They often fight a lot, and these fights stem from my wife trying to place illogical boundaries on my daughter. Just a few weeks ago they had a fight about the fact that my daughter bought a crop top, and my wife told her she was presenting herself in a ratchet way. You see, within the 2 years that we have all lived together, my wife has made it her mission to raise my daughter in a good Christian way, just like she was raised. My wife tried policing the clothes my daughter wears, the friends she hangs out with, and given that my daughter listens to metal music, my wife says that she has satanic tendencies. I have had many conversations about this topic with my wife, saying that I too listen to metal and you don't see me practicing Satanism. Yet my wife insists this is different. I remember a couple of months ago my daughter went to a heavy metal concert with her friend and her friend's dad, and they didn't come home until around 1 a.m. My wife came home from work around 8 p.m. and by that time my daughter had already gone. After I told my wife what my daughter was up to, she completely flipped out, saying that my daughter was going to get hurt and that this behavior was unacceptable and very much grounds for being grounded. I told my wife there was no way I was grounding my daughter over this, and my word is final. My wife went quiet for a second, before taking her keys and spontaneously deciding to drive to the concert to try to retrieve my daughter, but she was denied entry when she didn't have a ticket. She tried to buy one on the spot, but they were all sold out. When she came home she and I had a huge argument, and I put my foot down, saying if she says anything to my daughter when she gets home, we will be over. This made her listen, and she grit her teeth but didn't say anything to my daughter the next day. She did tell her to shut up however when my daughter was telling me how much fun she had last night. My wife and I talked that night, and I mentioned to her that I was done with her controlling my daughter. She is not her mother, and if she keeps this up I will put an end to our marriage. She ended up promising me that she would never again try to pull any controlling stuff. This promise of hers actually lasted, and I was very surprised to see that she was indeed following through with her word. That was until my daughter started planning a pool party for her sweet 16. We have a pool out back and my daughter's birthday is in the middle of July, and it was projected to be extremely hot. I thought it was a fun idea. The only person who of course did not approve was my wife. She tried to privately talk to me about how she thinks it's inappropriate for her and other girls her age to have a pool party and wear bikinis around grown people. I actually figured this to be a valid concern and told her that in that case we could make sure that no other parents are present. This was not enough for her however, as she later went behind my back and asked my daughter if she planned to invite any boys to her party. The thing is, my daughter actually had a crush on this guy in her class and planned to invite him, and when my wife found out about this she flipped out. Her and I had an argument one night about it, where she voiced her concerns about him being a creep who would definitely try rope someone. I told her she was completely out of line for this, and if the first thing that she thought of when she pictured a 16-year-old boy was rope, there was something seriously wrong with her. I gave her one final warning and told her to stay on the sidelines for both the planning and not to ruin the party when it does come. She agreed at the time, but in hindsight I should have been able to tell that her sure was just too sarcastic to fully believe. Anyway, when the party came around everyone was having fun. My daughter was indeed having a pool party, had invited other girls and boys from her class, and I was taking care of food and drinks. I don't know what went through my wife's head, but when she saw that my daughter was sitting poolside with her crush, doing absolutely nothing but talking, she went completely irate. She stormed out and started yelling at the boy, calling him all sorts of names such as creep and weirdo very loudly. After ripping into the boy for a solid minute and a half for being a creep and getting close to her daughter without a shirt on, she turned her attention to my daughter and started berating her, asking her if she has no decency to be dressed like a WH who's asking for it. One of her friends told my wife to cut it out, and my wife flipped out at the friend too, telling her that she has no right to tell my wife what to do in her own home. My wife then kicked everyone out, leaving only my daughter, who re-entered the house in tears. I was actually on the toilet for this whole encounter, and this was told to me by my daughter. I went downstairs to find my daughter crying and my wife looking extremely angry while watching TV. I asked my daughter what happened and she asked if we could go upstairs. I was ashamed of my wife after I heard what my daughter had to say, and I knew I had to divorce this woman. I apologized over and over to my daughter, and I decided to console her by suggesting something. My final act before divorcing my wife came 1 month later, and I would say it would classify as going out with a bang. My wife was having her 40th birthday party a month later in the house, and many of the friends she had over were friends from her church. My daughter and I came into the house midway through the party, with a speaker turned on full volume blaring the loudest heavy metal music possible, with our faces painted like members of our favorite bands. My wife tried to stop us, but after a couple of minutes of satanic music, every single one of the people at her party left. I filed for divorce the very next day.